Every week, players gather at their local game stores. They trade, and they battle valiantly for both fun and glory. But amidst their triumph, only two will make it to the finals to fight. What's up, everybody? Welcome to Final Fights, and looky who's there in the finals. It's none other than your boy playing some Red Purple Luffy versus Lucci. That's right, I was 3-0 going into the finals here. Actually managed to take out a Dofi the round before. Pretty hard matchup for Red Purple Luffy, but this deck is teched against Dofi pretty darn well. And we ended up keeping our opening hand here with a Nami on turn 1 to find up a Nami blocker. Wanted to find some kind of piece. I did have the Zorojoro already in hand, so wasn't really looking for the Zorojoro. But going ahead and playing down Zorojoro. Perfect curve for Luffy here. We'll see how Lucci can handle that. Notably, I made a little bit of a misplay here, and you might be asking what's that misplay that I made. And I pretty much enabled Lucci here to KO the Zoro. Now, Lucci does have a few ways to KO. You could Ice Age into Brook. But I did also set him up for a Lucci. So swinging 6k into lead, getting a 2k counter out of hand did allow him, with leader swing, to have enough cards to Lucci and leader ability, which is pretty unfortunate for me. I usually, that's like a heads up play that I usually play around. It's been a little while since I've played Red Purple Luffy, especially into Lucci. I haven't had too many Lucci players going around at locals here. We're going to play a Yasop, going to go up to 7k, and we're going to swing 7k at lead here, just trying to pushing the aggressive. Usually how I play this matchup is to try to be as aggressive as possible. Most often than not, your bodies are just not going to stay on the board in between turns, so you just want to constantly push face as much as possible. Also, just kind of dealing with board a little bit. If you're in a situation where like your hand is just a little bit bricked up. But Lucci being able to take care of my Zorojoro is pretty awkward, because now I got to just play the very basic 1, 3, 5, 7, 9 curve. I would have liked to be, at 9, maybe a turn earlier, right? We could have ramped, and then on my 7 Dawn turn, we could have been at 8 Dawn, which allowed us to be to 9 to play something like Rush Luffy or the Edward Newgate, but unfortunately couldn't see that. But we did find a nice little Yasop. I think we also have a Ben Beckman in hand for a nice little curve on the next turn, depending on what my opponent decides to do here. Opponent thinking 7k power is a lot to jump in through here, and Lucci, more often than not, has to use that leader ability to just kind of minus things if he wants to deal with things on the board. So just going to go 5k into lead, going to use Lucci's ability to -1 on Yasop, which means because I'm a 6k leader base stat, but with 7k leader this turn, means it's something I don't have to counter out of, and something I don't have to worry about. So just being really on the defensive early with this power boost is pretty darn great here. Opponent kind of eyeballing hand here, decides to instead just go for the Finger Pistol. Finger Pistol could have taken out Yasop anyways, but again, decides to wants to go for a Spandam here. Didn't have enough Dawn to do both a swing with Lucci and with the Lucci character on board, so instead just going to use that one extra Dawn using a Spandam to find a card, and then swing 7k into lead here. I'm just going to give him a 1k. We're going to give him that Nami I searched up. Notably, blockers, especially low-cost blockers like 4 and less, are just not very good against Lucci. Lucci can usually deal with them pretty quickly, as you'll kind of find out as we go through this game. Lucci's very good at dealing with threats, and so my job here as the Red Purple Luffy player is just to continue to put on the aggressive here. Just going to continue sending 6ks, sometimes 7ks if I have an extra Dawn to use, but this turn my curve is just a little bit filled up here. Opponent's going to use 2 1ks to get out of that attack, and we're going to play a Ben Beckman and trash the Lucci. Ben Beckman, pretty solid threat in the deck, does fill that 7 cost curve. Typically you want to play something like Captain Kid on 7, but Beckman also allows you to get on the board with a big attacker, right? 7k attacker, while also dealing with something on the board, which is a nice little Lucci here. So we're just going to keep, it looks like there's another Ben Beckman in hand, got a, looks like a 9-drop Luffy as well. So we do have some potential plays the next few turns. Beckman, just a way, just a good thing, good way to get rid of a threat, but also just continue to put big bodies into play, right? Continue to make Lucci count to, higher numbers every turn. Had to count to 5 last turn, now has to count to 7 this turn. Potentially he's going to have to count to 9 on the next turn. But if you look at Lucci's hand, Lucci definitely has some ways to count up. Looked like he had at least 2 Tempest Kicks in hand, as well as I think it's an Ice Age too. Just a whole lot of minusing in hand. I think a Soap Sheep in hand as well. So just so many ways to minus here. I think we decide, I think he had enough in trash when he did this. I think he had like 10 cards or 9 cards in trash. But he's going to go ahead and swing first instead. Again, because he's not committing any Dawn, those swings are absolutely just free, right? I will quote unquote take them, right? I'm being a 6k leader with a 5k swing. So opponent's gonna -1, he's gonna -3 with a Tempest Kick, and then gonna tap a few Dawn here to play out a Kaku. Kaku's gonna KO a 3 or less, gonna return a few CP cards, 2 CP cards there to the bottom of the deck, and then take care of my threat. Kind of annoying. Would have liked to see Ben Beckman survive, but hey, I know what I'm getting myself into the Lucci matchup, especially with my deck kind of being a 1 threat per turn kind of deck. If Lucci could just answer every single one of my threats, I'm just going to be in a pretty awkward position here. We're going to go and use Luffy's ability to ramp up to 10, right? If I have 8 or more Dawn. Pretty awesome ability to get you to those higher Dawn values earlier than usual. We're going to go ahead and swing a big 9k lead, and then we're gonna play out Ben Beckman again to trash the Kaku. I could have led with the 9-drop Luffy. Potentially could have swung 2 big swings in, but I kind of want to use that 9-drop Luffy as a surprise play, just because it does have rush. So for now, just kind of dealing with the board again. The less 6Ks he has on board, the less likelihood he'll be able to swing into me. Opponent's gonna show me an Ice Age, just continuing to show me just all the removal here. Looks like got potentially one attached to attack. Gonna look through the yard here. Does make me wonder if he will potentially have a Moria this turn, as this is kind of the golden turn for Moria, being at 10 Dawn here. Gonna go ahead and swing 6k at lead. Gonna go ahead and -1. Hits a Spandine out of yard, which means likely we're gonna get the good old Rebecca Spandine Lucci combo with a little bit of a mix of something else in the middle here. Gonna be the Spandum, and I end up just taking that hit there. Being at 3 life, you know, on my 10 Dawn turn is perfectly fine. This deck doesn't run Radical Beams anymore, so you don't really have to aggressively go down to 2. Right, Gum Gum Giant, such a huge upgrade for the deck, but opponent's going to do exactly what Lucci does best. Gecko Moria into Rebecca, into Spandum, into Spandine. Spandine is going to bottom some cards, CP specifically. Opponent kind of searching through the yard. I think the opponent only had so many hits at that point, and going to bottom deck those, and then going to play out the Lucci. Lucci's going to bottom deck 3 more cards, and then clean up the Beckman, and that's the second time my opponent has been able to count to 7 here. Hopefully we've kind of exhausted my opponent's resources at this point. But yeah, so 3 more cards, gonna be the big drops out of the yard, likely that Jack as well, and gonna stick those back under the deck and gonna take out my Beckman. Now I'm down to 2 life. I got 2 life, nothing on board. My opponent has a Rebecca, has a Gecko now. Gecko is gonna be a pretty big threat. Can very easily push past me and require quite a bit of counter out of hand to protect from. Right, so that's going to be a little bit annoying here. We're under 10 Dawn turn. We could play the Rush Luffy. We could, I think we also have 2 5-drops in hand. So it's a question of, do I want to play something tall, or do I want to kind of spread the board a little bit and kind of challenge my opponent to try to deal with more than 1 threat? Lucci definitely can do that, right? They can definitely deal with more than 1 threat, but we're going to try to also do some drawing power here. We're going to go ahead and use Queen's Effect, -1, draw 2, trash 1. Gonna pick up a few cards. I think we'd have picked up more than 1 kid here, so we're just gonna throw the kid away. And then I think we're going to attach. We're gonna go ahead and swing 7. I think this 7 is just going at lead. Opponent could give me 2 cards from hand, but they have a Rebecca on the field, so more often than not they're gonna block the Rebecca, and it's gonna make more sense when I play the next card here, because you may say like, oh dude, you played out of order, like why would you play this card last? Well, it didn't matter because Rebecca's going to block it anyways, and that's the Yasop. That would have been an 8k swing, but an 8k swing, my opponent would have just blocked with Rebecca anyways, so it didn't really matter. I let my opponent make a decision there before kind of showing him the rest of my hand, using leader ability to go up to 10 and then playing the Yasop. So now I'm sitting with 2 5-drops on the board. Opponent immediately shows me a Tempest Kick, which I'm not happy to see. I've been Tempest Kicked quite a few times this turn. Picks up a Lucci. Looks like he's also got a Soap Sheep in hand, so a whole lot of ways to potentially take care of my board here. Opponent sets out a few Dawn here. Got 5 Dawn in the middle, 4 Dawn likely representing a Lucci here, and I think my opponent's going to try his best to take care of the board here. Soap Sheep's going to -2 to 2 things. And then a leader attack will make Queen a 2-drop, so I'll have a 0 and a 2-drop, which I think is perfectly enough. Gonna go ahead and -2 using the new Uta tech. A lot of decks have been using this, and then Soap Sheep's just gonna go to 0 to 1. So technically, Lucci didn't need to use the Uta there. Could have just done that, and then yeah. So Gonna play Lucci, clean up my board, bottom deck 3, and it's got 2 more Dawn to leave over, so that means some hits are coming my way. And being at a 7k leader is pretty nice here. 1 Lucci can attack, 1 Gecko can attack, and the leader can attack. He's gonna have to commit quite a bit of Dawn just for some of those to even swing in. So Gecko's free, but then Lucci's gonna have to commit 1 Dawn too. And then if he tries to put Dawn as leader, that's gonna be not enough Dawn to swing forward here. And opponent looking at the yard here likely has another Gecko in hand. Gonna go ahead and swing 7k at lead here. And oh man, I hate these little pokes. I think that's one of Luffy's weaknesses is the little pokes that require 1Ks. Yes, this deck runs a whole lot of 1Ks than it used to. Yes, I can usually offer up a 1K in these situations, and we're going to do that. We're going to go and offer up a Nami, and then opponent's going to try to swing with their other Lucci, and then I remind them, hey, you just played a Lucci out. So we're just going to treat that Lucci like the one you played the last turn and leave the other one standing. And opponent's just going to attach 1 to Gecko and swing 10K, and I'm just going to absolutely take that. Yes, I did not have enough for a Gum Gum up at the time, was not leaving 1 Dawn up, was not planning on Gum Gum Gianting out of anything. But now that we're at 1 life and my opponent has quite a board here, we're definitely going to be leaving Gum Gum Giant up every single turn here as we go forward. And now our hand is you know, it's coming together. I think I've got a few 2Ks and we've got a Gum Gum Giant. We're going to just play out Rush Luffy. Rush Luffy's going to -1, draws the card, gain Rush. Opponent notably doesn't have any blockers here. And now we've got 2 Dawn. We're going to go ahead and swing 7k at lead here. See what my opponent decides to do. Opponent with 3 cards in hand. Opponent could take it and go down to 2, but the more they take, the more there's fear that I could just take my opponent out. Opponent's going to show me 2k, 1k. And then now because they showed me a 2k, 1k, I'm really going to try to check what's in their hand here. Someone has in 10 and a 9, and they do end up having the last 2k. Could have sent that 10 at life, but I just kind of wanted to... I mean, if the swing hit Gecko and that opponent didn't have a 2k in hand, then I was, you know, Gecko's down, and that's 1 less threat I have to worry about, right? But, oh well. In hindsight, probably should have sent it at life, but, you know, you never know if Lucci's going to show you another 2k. That deck does brick a lot, so I think checking the Gecko there was a fine play. Opponent drew a Jack for turn. Doesn't really have jack shit to do this specific turn, but setting out a few Dawn here, and looks like he's got 8 Dawn to slap on his Gecko, and looks like he's gonna go 17k into Luffy. And I'm like, okay, so clearly really wants Luffy dead. And I think what do I have in my hand? I think there's a specific card that's in my hand. So Gum Gum Giant's in my hand, and I'm really debating on just saving it here. I have so many cards in hand, and I'm gonna go ahead and just save it. So my whole thought process here is I need to keep this Luffy alive because I need to keep pressuring my opponent. And if this Luffy dies, I'm just going to be in a really bad spot. And also, Gum Gum Giant is absolutely free. So I end up drawing 2 cards and then using 2 2Ks to take Luffy up to 18 to counter out of it. Opponent's going to go ahead and swing 6 at lead. I'm going to 1k out of it. Opponent's going to go 6 at lead again. I'm going to 1k out of it. Opponent's going to go 7 at lead. I have to take that one just because I'm out of things here. And then we're going to go ahead and untap. And one of the cards that we drew off of the Gum Gum Giant is a very, very special card, a very awesome card. One of my favorite cards in this deck, and that is Gear 5 Luffy. If you know what Gear 5 Luffy does, you can look at this board state with only 1 card in hand, and you can kind of math it out a little bit here. And I'm thinking pretty hard, right? So for those that don't know, Gear 5 Luffy gives you an extra turn, minuses all of your Dawn, and bottom decks your board, but gives you an extra turn here. And so I'm thinking, my opponent has to take 4 hits. I potentially have 4 swings. We're going to swing 10 first, and the reason I did this is because typically you want to play good old 10-drop Luffy first, because then you can use Luffy's effect to ramp 1, use the other Luffy to ramp another, and then swing 7k. And I didn't want to swing 6k first because I was afraid my opponent had a 2k, and ultimately if they had a 2k and then drew a 1k, that 7k wouldn't have been great either. So there's multiple ways you could have sliced it. We're going to go to our second turn, swing 10k, and then we're going to go 12k, and we absolutely steal the game from Lucci. Lucci at 3 life, full board, 1 card in hand, feeling really, really comfy. And no, we're going to Gear 5 Luffy and take the game. And that is me going 4-0 with Red Purple Luffy at my local game store. Thanks everybody for watching. If you like this type of content, definitely subscribe, and we'll see you in the next video.